Hello, Beardo Bloggins here, with another video. In this one, we're going to be talking about autistic burnout, or just burnout amongst neurodivergent people in general. This is it is now a recognised symptom, for want of a better word, for neurodivergent people, or group of symptoms, because it can have, has lots of different things tied into it. So, I mean, when most people think of burnout, they think, overwork or, high stress situations, which it is for most people, but what creates burnout is a lot different for neurodivergent people, particularly autistic people, because it can basically they have a lower tolerance to initiate burnout, basically, and it can have much more longer term effects, I guess. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about in today's video. Sort of talk through what it was and how it can affect neurodivergent people, basically. So there's been a few bits of research on this now, and it is a recognised part of being neurodivergent, but and how it looks for different people. There are a few common things. So burnout is effectively lots of things piled on top of each other for autistic people. It can include chronic exhaustion, loss of skills, particularly social skills, but other life skills and things that they have learnt and picked up through education or life. And it can include a reduced tolerance to different stimulus. So that's different sensory stimulus, basically. So light, touch, sound, those sorts of things. But yeah, so those are what will trigger burnout for autistic people, or they're the most common effects of burnout. And there's no like set time that burnout will sort of last, but it can have quite detrimental effects on the autistic person, particularly depending on their environment. Many autistic people first experience burnout in puberty and being in secondary education, so secondary school or high school or whatever you call it, and it can occur at other times of transition and changes in circumstances, and it will have negative effects on people differently, but particularly physical and mental health. They can be hit pretty hard. There was one study where people reported struggling with independent living and being able to look after themselves, loss of self-belief, being quite worried that they now struggle with things that they didn't or found easy before, and being worried that loss of skills might be permanent. In this study, autistic people spoke about a lack of empathy from neurotypical people who don't necessarily understand what it feels like to, how much different burnout feels to autistic people than it does for neurotypical people. And sort of how neurotypical people relate to an autistic person's experiences and how it feels. Some people in this study also some people in the study also spoke about an increase in suicidal ideation and suicidal behaviour. So it can have quite negative effects on an autistic person. I know for me, I have experienced pretty strong bouts of depression when it comes to being burnt out. For me, I do get the it's just for me, I do get quite easily fatigued sort of during burnout, and even after burnout. I sort of struggle with like chronic fatigue and depression and things like that. That often gets significantly worse during a burnout phase for me. And it can be really hard, feeling like you could do more, but not being able to because your body doesn't allow you to, or because your mind doesn't allow you to. I certainly feel like I've lost skills that I've, used to be semi-okay at, or things like that due to burnout. But yeah, so it can be quite difficult. It's not easy to explain because, unless you've experienced it, you kind of have no real idea about what it is or what it feels like. And it can, and it varies for autistic people. Some people, and depending on the situation, of course, it can vary in intensity. But yeah, it's for me, it's usually triggered by overstimulation or things that stress me out. Trying to think of an example. So like for me and my dad go up to football quite a lot. We're both Man City fans, so going up to Manchester on a regular basis during the football season. And it's a full-on day because it's not just the football match. We live in the Midlands, and it's like, for me, it's like a 5-hour round trip to Manchester, there and back, and then it's sitting in a noisy pub, sitting in a noisy football stadium, and everything else on top of that. It can be quite internally stressful, even though I've sort of gotten better at masking it as I've gotten older. Internally, it can be quite difficult, and so it's effectively a full day of being like quite full on, and that just I'm knackered for 3 or 4 days after. And so, yeah, it's hard to explain because I don't know. I struggle with putting what I'm thinking into words. So that's, yeah, maybe part of the issue for why people don't really understand it. But yeah, I can get really. It's more than just being a bit tired. That's the thing. It's more than just I'll go have a nap or have a coffee or whatever. It feels much deeper than that. It's like, you know, it's not just feeling tired. It's something, I don't know, almost like your soul is tired, or just like your full body is just need to reset, and you need to not go anywhere for a week. And you know, that can happen fairly regularly. You know, some days it's easier to manage than others, and being on the ADHD medication helps a bit. But yeah, there's no sort of real control, and it's you know, it's a long-term condition basically, because it comes with being autistic. It's just one of those things. You know, and it's the aftermath as well that can be the most debilitating, really, because you know you've got the fatigue, and then you're, you know, sensitive. You're, you know, more sensitive to things you were before. You know, whether or not that be sensitive to different senses or tastes or whatever. But losing those executive functioning skills, like being able to do the day-to-day things, that can be quite frustrating, because it's like, I know I can do these things, but my mind and my body aren't working with each other to get things done. And so the aftermath, cut that out, the aftermath of burnout is almost worse than the burnout itself, because it can last a lot longer, particularly for high functioning autistics, because they're constantly working at masking those problems and masking what they're struggling with. And for them, it requires that much more energy to be able to do. So when they do get burnout, it can sometimes be a bigger drop, basically, from what they were before to what they are post burnout. But yeah, I mean, there's about 4 or 5 things that it sort of really hits hard. You know, because it's not just the skills and the exhaustion, it's you know, difficulty managing emotion or difficulty adapting to change. So an autistic person in burnout might lash out, or you know, have panic attacks or anxiety attacks, or you know, be extra defensive, because during burnout, one study found that it was the prefrontal cortex that sort of becomes exhausted, And of course, with high masking autism, that sort of prefrontal cortex area sort of takes up a lot of that effort, which then can lead to burnout. And I'll stick the link in below for that study. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it, really. I probably rambled on a bit longer than I should have done. But yeah, just look after them, basically. If you see the signs, it's mostly, exhaustion, increased sensitivity to stimulation, decreased executive functioning skills, that's the day-to-day stuff, difficulty managing emotions, difficulty adapting to change, and increase in depression and suicidality. Yeah, it's one of those. I can't really think of how to explain it in a quick way to someone who's never experienced it, because it's just really difficult to put it into words. But yeah, I'll stick some studies in the link in the description box below. And yeah, I hope what was said makes sense. I hope you enjoy. See you in the next one.